All right, Salakia. I had gotten a phone call. I don't remember exactly where I was at, so I'm just gonna, Lord willing, open back up somewhere else. But I know basically the lesson was centered around being a good brother. Because that's something that Esau isn't known for, right? Cain got reincarnated as Esau Edom. But Cain, he was a murderer, right? He hated his brother. He envied. That's another thing. Envy. That's a wicked trait, man. It's a wicked emotion to have, envy. You over there got your face scrunched up because a brother got a raise at the job and you didn't. What the fuck? Like, what is this shit? Like, bro, chill. Relax. Like, you should be happy for the brother, man. You don't know what things he's going through. That was the balance. That was his balance. He could be getting fucked up behind closed doors. Brother's car could have gave out, or his leg might be fucking hurting like a motherfucker. You don't know what's going on, man. You got to be mindful of that too. But that's also the importance of communication, right? Because the scriptures even tell you, let everything be done decently and in order. Things being done decently and in order also involves communication, reporting. Report what's going on, because you can't. Oh well, what the. You can't be surprised when brothers, have a certain, judgment or opinion based upon your actions when they don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Had you said certain things sooner, it could have, this whole situation could have been, what's the word, averted, right? But, we've all had those moments, where we didn't report something. I remember when I was, I'm not saying this like I'm in the truth. I'm a babe. For sure. I am a straight newborn. Can't even hold my head up. But I'm saying, I remember when I first was coming in the first couple years, I had made a YouTube channel and, with GMS on the title, and I didn't report to anybody that it was my channel. It wasn't like I didn't want nobody to know that I had the channel. No, but I didn't want to seem like I was chasing views or nothing. I was being OR. I was like, no, I didn't want to tell nobody, hey, this is my channel, because I didn't want to seem like I was chasing clout. I wasn't thinking at the time, and that could have been bad, which, wasn't nothing too crazy, but it could have ended bad. It could have been real bad. I could have gotten a lot of trouble for that, and you don't want to put yourself in that type of predicament. You don't want to jeopardize, which, if you fall out the camp, well, I'll say if you leave, rather. But either way, kicked out. If you leave the camp somehow, some way, or get kicked out, it doesn't mean that it's the end of your walk. That we've seen guys, do a 180 and change. For sure, we've seen that. But based upon what I've seen, majority of the time, it's not the case. And even sometimes it will seem like the individual's cool for a minute, and then they just wax worse and worse because they're separated. They separated, especially the guys that leave themselves, they separated themselves from the body, from life. So they just wax worse and worse. Like the scriptures say, the house of Saul, they're included in that. Because they weren't really of us, like the scriptures say, right? Otherwise they would have continued with us. Okay? So, bro, this thing is about brotherhood. It's about enduring. It's about being sincere towards Yahweh Shemel Shai, being contrite, praying, fasting, which that shows the effort. We got a camp fast today. And Lord willing, it's going to be a beautiful, fast. I'm not saying that for vainglory or nothing. I'm saying that, I'm not the best with fasting. I need to, but I try. I do what I can with everything. Reading, lessons. Some days I'm just not where I want to be. It's just a low spirit moment, low day, but you still got to get something in. You got to keep the fire lit, man. Because when you're out, especially in wintertime, and you got a fire, you got to wake up in the middle of the night to keep that lit. Otherwise, you're going to freeze to death out there, man. You don't want to do that. You want to maintain your oil. You want to, Matthew 24:13, he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. It's like it's getting dry as hell in this fucking van. But yeah, you just gotta endure, man. You just gotta continue to fight. Be a good brother, and yeah, just keep it simple, man. That's what it comes down to. The fundamentals. It's cool that you can do the between the leg crossover and shoot threes and all that. But if you miss a layup, especially when the game depends on it. Like, bro, where's your fundamentals? You know, guys overlook the fundamentals. It's not about being the, you know, the top scholar. It's about applying whatever knowledge the Lord has given you. You know, King Masha is quoted with that, saying that the man that knows one scripture is better, you know, than a man that knows 1,000 doesn't apply a single one. I believe there's a verse in the Apocrypha that says something similar to that as well. You know, and then also there's one even in the regular, you know, the Apocrypha came from the Old Testament, but I'm saying, when I'm saying Old Testament, I'm saying like not the Apocrypha, but one in the Old Testament. I think it's in Proverbs. It says there's one that says a dog is better than a dead lion or something like that. A living dog is better than a dead lion. You know, so if you have all this wisdom but you're not applying it, there's another one in Sirach. It says there's a man that's wise and he teaches many, but he's unprofitable unto himself. So it's like, that's an example of that. Yeah, you're a lion, but you're dead. So yeah, I'm a dog. You know, I ain't got the abilities that you have, but I'm alive and kicking. I'm moving around. You know, so apply. You know, that's the bottom line, man. Apply. Be sincere. Be a good brother. You know, we'll work on our patience. We got to be more patient. I need to be way more patient. You know, and it's not easy, but you get there. You know, you learn. You grow as long as you're growing. You know. So with that, you know, shalom.